Hi, I'm Rachel Arnett, and I am a doctoral student here at HBS. And today I'm excited to talk to you about how employees can harness cultural identity expression to actually potentially gain inclusion. I'm interested in this in the context of cross-cultural interactions at work, that is, interactions in which two people differ in terms of their race, ethnicity, or nationality. So Cultural identity expression, what does that mean? I'm defining this as the act of voluntarily bringing attention to a known cultural identity during interactions with others. And so we know that employees often, especially those who are underrepresented in organizations, often value the opportunity to bring attention to their cultural backgrounds, but on the other hand are concerned about how this will affect their sense of inclusion. But we don't fully understand actually how people are likely to respond to these types of behaviors. So what I'm interested in is how cultural identity expression actually influences observers' inclusive behaviors towards them. That is, how it affects actions that communicate to the person expressing their identity that their authentic self is socially accepted and professionally valued. And what I'm going to argue is that the relationship between cultural identity expression and observers' inclusive behaviors is dependent on the type of identity expression enacted. I'm going to draw a distinction between minimal and rich identity expression, which I'll go into in a moment. So what I did is I ran an experiment where I asked white participants to serve as observers of identity expression, and specifically I told them to select a current coworker who was culturally dissimilar to them. They had to write the person's initials, so they couldn't switch who the person was. And then they were asked to let's say that the person's initials were ABC, okay? So they were asked to describe a time when they were interacting with ABC and he or she did one of the following. In the minimal identity expression condition, they made you aware of his or her cultural background. And in the rich identity expression, they helped you to better understand his or her cultural background. And so, whereas in minimal identity expression condition, they might talk about, they talked to me about a holiday that they celebrated this weekend. In the rich identity expression condition, they were maybe, like they say, they helped me to understand maybe the history behind this holiday or their experiences celebrating it as a child, for example. And what I predicted is that these stories about rich identity expression would lead to more inclusive behaviors compared to minimal identity expression, which has the potential to perhaps bring attention to differences without helping people to really get past them. And so you might argue that rich identity expression simply provides more content. It helps you to better understand the person, and that's why it might be more effective. And so as another experimental condition, I had participants talk about this ABC or whoever, helping them to understand their emotions and feelings, which the intergroup contact literature would suggest should be particularly helpful for helping the observer connect to that person. And so these were all compared to a control condition where the person just talked about work. And so I looked at how this affects a variety of inclusive behaviors. I'll go through them quite quickly, but the first was professional inclusiveness. So this was their willingness to seek out and incorporate the culturally dissimilar coworkers' input and contributions professionally. And what I found is that compared to the control condition, rich identity expression and also emotion self-disclosure both were able to actually make people more willing to include that coworker, to say that they would include that coworker, and minimal identity expression did not. I also found that whereas all of these were effective in making people more interested in socially including that coworker, perhaps inviting them to lunch or going out to coffee with them or even spending time together after work, rich identity expression was the only one that reached significance and had a much stronger effect on willingness to socially include this person. I found that rich identity expression was the most effective in making people interested in learning more about the coworker's identity on a future occasion. So it wasn't just, hey, you're kind of talking about this right now, but I'm sort of hoping that the interaction ends and we can never have this conversation again. Rich identity expression actually made people much more interested in talking about the person's cultural background on another occasion. Also, reciprocal disclosure is really important in developing bonds between people. And so I found that rich identity expression was the only condition that made participants more interested in sort of having a two-way mutual self-disclosure with the person where they could also open up about their background, their emotions, their culture. And finally, I looked at their willingness to support multiculturalism in the organization overall, because we know that whites are often hesitant to support multiculturalism. And I found that rich identity expression could actually turn the needle on this a little bit, that it actually could make whites more supportive of multiculturalism in the organization overall. And so why is rich identity expression perhaps more effective than other ways of sharing with one's employees who are culturally dissimilar? One thing it might have to do with this is the level of comfort that it creates during the interaction. So during the interaction, rich identity expression actually made people less anxious and more relaxed during the interaction, whereas minimal identity expression had no effect, and emotion self-disclosure actually made people more anxious and less comfortable. And so I hope this gives you some encouragement to perhaps express your own identities at work, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.